hours.
Nice. We got plenty of time.
Plenty of time. There's
That's
13 hours on this SD card. That might be.
It's going to be a long one.
What do you think the longest podcast ever? Probably Joe Rogan.
I don't know. Yeah, I've listened to some of his that are like his Jordan Peterson one's pretty long, three and a half hours, something like that. That's a long time sitting there. I'd have to pee like 4 times.
Well, when he does Alex Jones does, I gotta go pee.
Yeah.
All right. And then Joe's just talking there. Did you listen to the Mike Tyson one?
Was it recently?
It was very recent.
No, I haven't. I haven't.
I started listening to it and I didn't think I'd keep listening. And within probably 10, 15 minutes, I texted my wife. I was like, you got to listen to this.
Really?
Mike Tyson, as crazy as he is, the guy he's a sage wizard. Like he is so wisdom. Like he's just full of wisdom. Everything he says is like, wow, I can't believe Mike Tyson's saying this stuff.
And then he eats another handful of mushrooms.
Oh, I'm pretty well, the way that the podcast starts out, and Kira's like, I didn't know why you told me to listen to this. He starts out, he's like, he's got his lisps from getting in the face all the time and everything. He's like, well, the reason why I'm doing so good is because the frog venom. You're like,
frog venom?
He's like, yeah, the DMT from the frog venom.
Oh.
And then he goes off on how the frog told him to start fighting again. And you're like, this is bad. This is not gonna be good. And then all of a sudden he starts getting into things like, if you're gonna be successful, you've gotta be willing to be an idiot. And then just gets into
interesting
deep wisdom where you're like, how is Mike Tyson, the guy who bit Evander Holyfield's ear off in a fight? I'm learning so much. And then probably halfway through the podcast, they're talking about chimps and tigers and lions and everything. And Joe's like, I'm learning so much in this podcast. And it is. Mike Tyson's just full of wisdom for everything from the DMT frog venom to coaching. He talks about coaching and how coaches need to be essentially how coaches, their job is so much harder than that of an athlete's. And he even says, he's like, I can't be a coach, but I can be an athlete because I'm good at doing what I'm told.
Yeah.
But I'm not good at telling
doing the strategizing and figuring out what needs to be done necessarily.
He talks about fighters and coaches, and he's like, most coaches are not fighters, and they shouldn't be. And it was just really cool. So I'd recommend.
Yeah, I'll get on there and listen to it.
Good. I haven't listened to the whole
Have you seen? I think it popped up probably on one of my social media deals or something. But his gummies, he's got CBD gummies that are in the shape of an ear with a bite mark out of them. But it's interesting because I've heard, like, Joe Rogan's talked about him a few times in different podcasts and stuff, and he he has an interesting story. Like, obviously he was on Mike Tyson. Obviously he's on top of the world, kind of has goes downhill for a while. Like they were saying at one point he was worth like, I don't know, $20 million or something, somewhere in that range. And then just kind of blew it all, like was worth basically nothing. And then kind of came back and got into different business type stuff and everything. And it's cool.
He talks about interesting. It a little bit in a podcast when he didn't have much money. He was talking with Dana White, who's the CEO of UFC. And he's like, hey, I think I'm going to do a fight again. And Dana's like, you can't fight. Like, I don't want to see you get hurt. I don't want to see you get knocked out. I don't want to see anything happen to you. So Dana White gets him on Shark Week, and he goes and he has to tickle the sharks underneath the neck.
You mean like Discovery Shark Week?
Yeah.
Like on the TV show or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And his job is to like tickle the shark under the chin, and it makes him fall asleep. And Joe's like, wait a second. So you're telling me Dana White didn't want you to go get in a fight, but he wanted you to get in and tickle a shark?
Well, I don't want you to get knocked out, but your arm getting bitten off is okay.
Yeah. And then Mike's like, yeah, my wife wanted me to do the same thing. He's like, wait, those mother effers don't want me to live.
Finally hit him.
So
that's funny.
Like, for being, I didn't go into it with much. And I was very blown away
Hmm.
at the wisdom that he has, which,
there's quite a few of those that are
Yeah.
interesting. I'm like, I don't want to listen to that. I'm like, man, this is some of the best stuff I've ever listened to. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
some of the MMA podcasts, like I don't even know who the
Mhm.
guy is, and then you start listening, you're like, I want to look up your fight, man. Like,
Yeah.
this is good stuff.
Well, and a lot of it is because of that backstory. Like a lot of the ones that I come away with really enjoying, and this is on any podcast I listen to. I usually listen to Rogan if there's something good on there. I'll listen to Jocko.
Yeah.
If there's something that catches my interest, and then Jordan Peterson, and that's
Yep.
kind of about it. And all of those, I've had ones that I've clicked on. I'm like, I don't know who this person is or whatever. And it's always those stories of struggle,
Yeah.
and figuring it out and being, like the bottle breacher guy, like we talked about, like coming up with this thing that everybody thinks is stupid, and you keep working at it, and 5 years down the road you're a genius.
Yep.
Like those are the best stories. I love them. They're good.
Yeah. And we're filled with them. We just might not see it.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have struggle, everybody. And the more that you struggle and you start to learn about other people, you're like, oh, everybody's struggling. And it's different struggles, right? So if you live in Haiti,
Yeah.
the struggle might be to get food. And that's a very real, very tough struggle. Interestingly, when we've been to Haiti, I'm totally just throwing out a number, 95% of the people are happy down there.
Mm-hmm.
You come here, we don't have to struggle for food, and only half the people.
And nobody's freaking happy.
Yeah.
Everybody's flipping you off and stuff.
Yep.
Going down the road.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Very just bizarre to think about. And then that 8 billion people are having unique problems. But if we are to see those problems correctly, those 8 billion people can learn from it and be in a much better place.
Yeah.
We just don't. I think a lot of times we struggle, and then we let ourselves continue to struggle, and we don't learn from that struggle.
Well, and I think that's probably what's so good about those stories.
Yeah.
Is it brings that struggle and stuff out that we normally don't see, and so we can relate with it too. It's like, I have lots of stupid ideas too that I think are really cool, and and going on with it. So
yeah, well, and the best stories in history, the ones that are taught in school and we have to read in college, the Iliad and the Odyssey, they're all the hero that ends up in this massive struggle and then just pulls themselves to the top of it. And then, a lot of times I don't know as far as the stories go, but they get to the top, and then what happens? They fall again.
Yeah.
The most successful people out there, my wife has to remind me of this, the most successful people out there are the ones who have struggled the most, but have used that struggle to learn.
Yeah.
2000, we're going to talk recession today and how to recession proof. You talk 2008, 2009 crash. The ones who learned from that are the ones that are on top right now. But there are others that I'm thinking mostly in construction, but there were others that go out on their own. They crash, and then they just settled for something that they didn't want to do, and they're still doing it.
Yeah. Or even talking about recession, I almost see it as, I think a lot of people hear recession and it's fearful.
Yeah.
Well, the people that look at it and go, holy cow, that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And they're looking for the opportunities in that, like 2008, 2009, I guarantee there was people that were in real estate, didn't get, they knew how to, or they kind of had an idea maybe of how to structure in a way that they wouldn't get wiped out.
Yeah.
But they could also find, have some money aside or whatever to massively jump on the opportunity that was the 2008, 2009 thing,
Yeah.
And there was other people that saw it as the worst thing ever and went away from real estate and have never looked back and said, real estate sucks. You can't make money at real estate.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there was people that were like, this is an opportunity and I'm going to take advantage of it. And so even just a mentality shift, and that's, you got to have that mentality as an entrepreneur, doing a side hustle or whatever, whether there's a recession or not. I mean, there's always opportunities out there.
Always.
And you always have got to be looking for the positivity in that, and not, look for the ways that it's going to succeed and not be focused on the ways that it's going to fail or whatever,
Yeah.
I've heard there's I don't know, in a book or something I read, I don't even know where, but there's a company that teaches their employees and tells their employees to have they call it something positivity, like it's not naive, but like another word kind of for naive, but like just over the top positivity, like wish I could think of the word, but unrealistic positivity or whatever, like that's what they teach their people, is just to be very positive and
It's
be
kind
looking
of
for
overly
opportunities.
positive,
Mhm.
or like an inverse paranoid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So W. Clement Stone, he was the publisher of Success Magazine for a while. Jack Canfield, Success Principles, Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, he worked for him. And people would describe him as an inverse paranoid. Instead of going out and being like, what bad's going to happen to me in the world today? He's like, what good is going to fall upon me today? And I don't think he was faking it. It was truly how he was. It was just, man, the world is looking so kindly upon me all the time.
Yeah.
And good things happened to him. And now bad things probably happened as well, but he didn't see them as bad. He saw them as, oh, this happened to me so I can learn from it, or this happened to me so I can grow.
Or you didn't focus on them and become obsessed with them.
Yeah.
I mean, you see people that become obsessed with all the ways that something could go wrong,
Yeah. And we live in a world that's easy to do. You hop on. I haven't been on social media a lot lately just because it's like that. You're going through and you're like, oh, Russia, oh, economy, oh, the Fed, oh, the dollar. Just it's draining when there's all that opportunity out there that we're not scrolling through Instagram and going, ooh, opportunity, ooh, opportunity.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if this is true, but I heard this the other day. There was this big effort to push music from 440 hertz from 432 hertz is how like the classical symphonies used to be all tuned in. And then there was this big push in like the 40s, 50s, 60s to move away from 432 hertz to 440. And it's a completely different vibration that we end up getting. So if you listen to like a classical symphony where they're tuned like that versus music today, completely different feelings going to come out. Listening to classical music versus rock, which I like rock. I even like metal, but totally different mood that's going to come out of that.
Right.
And I don't know exactly where I'm going with that, except for that it's what we're seeing, what we're putting in our bodies, what we're consuming is really going to end up where we're going. What you focus on expands. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah. And none of that stuff, it's interesting too, because, going through all the negativity in the world, none of it's actually true. I mean, like the events around it are true. Like obviously the Ukraine-Russia thing is true. Like there's conflict going on there, but most of it's interesting to see like when a big event happens, like say there's a big car wreck or whatever, and I used to be like obsessed, or like a shooting, like say a shooting happens and all the news agencies are trying to report as quickly as they can what happens, and it's like, okay, like 600 people dead and da, 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 da. Well, then as more information comes out, like it's like, okay, well, there was maybe nobody died, but there was a bunch of people injured or whatever. They're so far off. They're so far off. It's opinion, and it's like fear porn. They're trying to get it out there to grab your attention. And so a lot of the fear and anxiety and negativity and fear of the recession and whatever else, nobody freaking knows.
No.
Even, and I've, over the last 5 years, my mentality on this has changed a lot. And I think it's because, just focusing more on education and following some of these people that are so-called experts.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with different people over the last, well, really for most of my life, but like, especially with like a specific asset class, maybe, or something, like I'll follow one person for a while, and they're like, oh, like this is going to happen, and it's going to make this happen, and this is going to happen, and the price of this is going to, like, obviously they're knowledgeable people, and what they have to say for the most part is valuable.
Yeah.
But they are always so wrong.
Yeah.
Like all of them.
It's true.
And it's like, I'm sure eventually some of those things will come to pass. I mean, there's some people that are just wrong and will never be right, I mean, for the most part. But sure, eventually the dollar might crash and silver might be worth $2 million an ounce or whatever,
Yeah.
But these people there's people in any of those asset classes that are like, oh, it's going to happen next year. It's going to happen next year. It's going to happen next year. And it never does when they say that, And so I think for us, it's good to have all of those perspectives and general education, but then have a system set up that we don't change a whole lot. Like find something that works for you, find something that you like to do, and then just keep doing that, and sure, make small adjustments and stuff. But all of this negativity and fear mongering and stuff, don't make huge changes based on that stuff. Like I remember a couple years ago, people were like, oh, COVID's going to ruin the real estate market. It's going to go way down and whatever. I sold some real estate, not necessarily because of that, but because of other issues.
Well, I mean,
I should have held on to all of that real estate, like granted it's worked, we've taken that and reinvested it and it's been fine. But listening to, just, I think it's key to figure out some kind of system that is working for you. Now that takes some time to figure out whether it's an investment or a business or whatever, but just keep doing it if it's working. Don't make big changes and that kind of stuff.
Keep doing it if it's working and then refine it.
Yeah
No, I really like that. I think that's the perfect way to look at recession proofing, and just knowing that whatever happens is going to happen and we just need to be prepared for it. It's pretty easy if you zoom out to look and see what things do. If you zoom out on the S&P 500, it only goes up. Now, will it go up forever? I don't know. Maybe not. But if you zoom out, it goes up. What does silver and gold do? They go up. Well, silver, I guess, peaked in the 80s and hasn't really gone.
Yeah, it's been a weird one.
Yeah. But historically speaking, if you look at this stuff and you just zoom out, we get so caught up on, what's the economy going to do tomorrow? Well, what about in 6 months? That's a pretty short time frame. Well, the question is, what can we do today to make sure that in 6 months we're thriving? Like, that's really what matters. And if, like you said, in that plan, something is not working exactly correctly, like we want it to, zooming out, just refine it a little bit.
Yeah.
If your assets are not growing and they're dwindling, you're doing something wrong, and just change it. And the only difference in someone that's worth $0 and someone who's worth 50 million is that person who has 50 million just knows something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Knows something a little bit deeper. That's it. Like that's really it. Anybody on this entire earth, granted, there's going to be political and governmental and different things. Everybody has the potential, though, to move yourself into a position of greatness.
Yeah.
They just have to learn it. We have to learn it. That's why we're doing this podcast. We do it.
Yeah.
So we can talk to each other and we can learn it. So what are some things that, like, your average Joe person can do to help make sure that if we do hit this scary recession that everyone's talking about, can be okay?
Yeah, I really, in thinking about this, like, I don't think I prepare any different for a recession than I just set up my life to be prepared for any kind of uncertainty. And I'm not perfect at it, and those things are still growing too. I mean, it's not like I have everything in place that I want to have.
Yeah.
But as silly as it sounds or whatever, one thing that we started out with was, okay, let's get some food storage on hand.
Yep.
And let's get some cash put away so that, if there is a food shortage or whatever, and this is stuff we've done ever since we've been married, even growing up. I mean, I was taught this growing up. This isn't just me coming up with it. But say there is a food shortage, or say that we don't have enough money to buy food. Well, having a month or 2 months or a year's worth of food is pretty valuable. So kind of on the baseline, that's what we, especially when we got, when I got married and stuff, and we were having to do a lot of this stuff for our own family and ourselves. And it was, let's get some food put away and an emergency fund, and that might be something small. That might be a month's worth of expenses or part of a month's worth of expenses as you start out. Now some of these things might take some sacrifices. I think maybe even the bottom layer from that is don't spend money on stupid stuff.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot, is cut out some stuff that's non-essential and build up some of these things that are essential, and I think that a lot of that comes with education and just learning the difference between an asset and a liability, or learning the value of being prepared maybe, or whatever. But those are some baseline stuff, things that I do or that we have done. And then as you grow those things, it's like, well, okay, we've kind of got, maybe we get to a point to where there's a year's worth of food put away. Okay, well, let's take that money and let's build that emergency fund. Okay, well, that's done. Let's start investing it in assets that will grow over time, and that kind of stuff. Like, and that can be so small. Like when I was first married, that was like probably less than $100 a month that we would put into some of those things. And then just over time, it just turns into something that you're like, hey, that's pretty cool that it grew to that, I don't know. And maybe that sounds funny.
No, I think
it's silly.
I think it's awesome because one, we never know what's going to happen. And I think we live in a pretty abundant world, and especially where we live, there's a lot of abundance here in the United States. There's abundance, and especially in the area that we live, there's abundance. But if something did turn for the worse, what do we need? We need food and water. I mean, that's the essentials right there. Well, we might always be chasing that next business, or that next $1 million or whatever that is. But do we have a month worth of food? I mean, that's a simple thing, but that's actually very important and very relevant. I think that's something I would add to it, not to be doomsday, but a little bit of silver, gold, cigarettes, and alcohol.
Well, and that's just, that just adds on to that. The emergency fund, you know what I mean? Like even ammunition or whatever, like any of that kind of stuff that you can, and it doesn't even have to be those things, anything that you can buy excess of and put it away and not consume it today. That's a win. It might be a bulk tank of gasoline. Maybe you buy a 55-gallon drum and put it in your garage and you fill it up once a year or something, just to have it on hand. I mean, any time that you can delay consumption, you're pushing those assets into the future. There's a lot of value in doing that. And I look at, preparing for a recession no different than preparing for, say an unexpected bill comes in or something like that.
For sure.
Like, in individual households, maybe a big medical bill or something comes through that has the same or probably even more of an impact on that individual household than a recession does. Or something unexpected, the car breaks down or something, and so the more stuff that you can kind of over time put away when you're on top of those things, and then it's just not an issue. I mean, you don't have to really put any brain power into it. You don't have to stress out about it. You don't have any anxiety around it. It's like, all right, it's $500 to fix my car this month. That sucks. I really would just rather have that $500 in the bank. That makes me feel good, but I've got the $500. It's not that big of a deal. You don't even really give it a second thought. It's instead of turning into a huge thing.
What is it? The average American has access to less than $400.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's like 65% of Americans don't have enough money to cover a $400 emergency expense.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
I just whispered like Joe Biden.
It is crazy. that whisper was for emphasis because it's important.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
It really is. And I like what you said. Just don't buy stupid crap. Now, it's okay to buy stupid crap when you have a plethora of money. That actually helps move the economy. Buying stuff means that you're buying it from that small business owner, or the guy that it used to be a small business that turned it into a bigger one. Velocity of money, it's important. It's important for the economy. But if we have food storage and we have an emergency fund and we have some consumables that we're not consuming, like you said, the other thing is cash flow. Everybody out there has something. some skill, a product, a service, something that you can be cash flowing, or that you can at least know that you can cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people out there that talk about, I want to start a business, I want to do this, I want to do that. Then start it, even if it's on a small scale. And you're like, I'm only going to give an hour a week to this. Just do it, because you start to learn those skills that it takes to where if you need to, you can get out and do it. Maybe I'm just totally throwing out a job that could possibly go away. Maybe you work for a mortgage lender and mortgages go, they're not doing them. There's not many mortgages happening, and you lose your job. But you were really good at raking leaves. I'm just throwing stuff out there. And you've refined it over time, and you have this really efficient way of raking leaves. And you go to this prominent neighborhood and you market yourself as the guy that can rake leaves the best out of everybody. You really are ahead of the game as far as recession proofing yourself. If you were to lose your job today, do you have that month worth of food? Do you have that emergency fund? And do you have the skills that you can go out and actually turn a profit?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that exercise of filling the need of an opportunity, it kind of gets you looking for opportunities too. Like there's opportunities all around us every day. Like how many ideas do you come up with a day driving from like here to the next town over? Like
it would baffle.
Yeah. Just like me too. Like I'm driving down the road and I'm like, that would be a good business, like, and you have to kind of learn to pull some of the ones out that you really like and pursue them, because it gets over. You can't pursue everything, right?
You and my wife have to be like Tyler.
Well, I do the same thing. I do the same thing. I'm like, hey, that would be a good idea. That would be a good idea. I have a file at home that I keep. If I have ideas that come up that I really like, I'll type up a business plan and throw it in there. If it's not one that I'm going to pursue right now, and then I can go back and look over that and have contacts and everything. But because it does, like entrepreneurs are creative. That's the thing. You know? And so, but going through that, your example of the side hustle, raking leaves, it starts opening your brain to look for other opportunities, and needs that need filled out there. Yeah. And that's a skill.
It is
just looking for opportunities and finding opportunities. The cool thing about that is it's a skill that can be developed rather quickly. As you start looking for opportunities pop up all over the place. Yeah. And it's pretty fun to see and be part of. But I was listening, we're talking about Joe Rogan a whole bunch on here, but I was listening to, I've been doing a bunch of work moving dirt the last couple days. And so I've had lots of time to listen to podcasts. But I listened to him and Dave Chappelle, and it's an older podcast, maybe last year or something. But it was interesting in there. They were both talking about so Joe Rogan was doing, Dave Chappelle was talking about doing the Chappelle Show, and he's like, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Yeah. And he kind of, they talked about that a little bit, but he's like, that really wasn't what I wanted to do, but the money was good enough. Yeah. That, I was taking that money and I was putting it on the side, and he called it FU money. Yeah. So he's like, I'm putting away this FU money to where I knew that I would have a good amount of money set aside that I could go and do what I wanted to do when I got done with that. Yeah. And Joe Rogan talked about the same thing, how when he was doing Fear Factor, it wasn't what he really wanted to be doing, but it was good enough money that he could be, putting some money away on the side and that kind of thing. And then pursuing, I think that's when he started doing commentary on the UFC fights just for free, for fun, because he wanted to. And, and then it turned into this big thing. And then even his podcast too, like he kind of started doing that just because he wanted to. And he had, he had some money, stored away to where he could do that. Everybody thought he was crazy doing this podcast thing. Yeah. But I thought too, back to our steps for a recession, say you have some food or resources, whatever, stacked up to where that doesn't take a lot of money to sustain yourself. You get an emergency fund in place, and you've developed those habits. So you just keep adding to that emergency fund, whether it's cash in the bank or whether it's investments or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that little egg can turn into some FU money.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if that, to where say it's not a recession, say you just get to a point where you don't love your job anymore and you're not fulfilled there anymore. Well, if you have a year's worth of money stacked away,
yeah,
you've got a lot more confidence to go and try something else
absolutely.
new and have some startup money and everything else than you do if you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Like that's such a big, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Is, we flipped some houses and even sold our personal house.
Yep.
And moved in, fixed up some other houses and had some other things, on the side that we were doing and whatnot, to where we had an amount of money that we're like, okay, now we don't know exactly what the next step is, but we feel confident that we could at least get by for a little while.
Yeah.
And so then we were able to make that transition out of, a job into pursuing some other businesses.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that's the value of delaying consumption and putting that away, putting away the extra, is you can really get in a spot that you can start to succeed rather quickly.
Yeah. And there's also something there. I wish I would have looked up the definition and studied a little before this, but there's a natural law of sacrifice that's in there, by you sacrificing and saying, hey, we're going to sell our personal home and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. There's something there. It's kind of like giving. When you give, I don't know how, but it returns to you. It doesn't have to be monetarily, but it returns to you. They're
usually multiplied.
Yes, multiplied. Because we really do live in an abundant world. And there's something with sacrifice too. If you're willing to sacrifice, then somehow, and I'm going to throw out the term because we are who we are, blessings happen.
For sure.
So, we might see that as blessings from a higher power. Someone else might see that as just some sort of natural law that exists. And some other people might think that it's just hokey crap. But it works.
Yeah.
Sacrifice, giving. Maybe it doesn't seem like that obvious of a thing, but we've talked about it before. A lot of these podcasts might just turn into things we've talked about before because they're so important.
Yeah.
When things start to go in a direction that we don't want to see them go, we give. And that is not to be like, hey, look at us, we give. No, go give of yourself or of your time or of some money or whatever it is. Just give. It comes back to you. Don't go give just to get it back. You feel better. You're helping the world. You're helping humanity. And if we are truly headed into a recession or we're in a recession, what could we do better than help each other? I mean, that's like the key to all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, mentality has a lot to do with it,
Yeah.
And if you're giving, then obviously you have an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
And if you have an abundance mindset, then you're going to find opportunities.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I heard a story where this lady, she went in for, I don't know, she was having problems, something. I don't know if it was like mental stuff or went into a psychiatrist or something. I don't know. And she was failing at maybe life or failing at some stuff, whatever. And her response, like after she went in and kind of started working through this stuff and everything, was, well, hopefully it's me that's the problem and not everything else. And the guys, whoever's helping her, whatever, the mentor's like, well, what do you mean? That's kind of weird that you would hope that you're the problem. And she's like, no, well, if it's me that's the problem, I can change. I can learn what I need to learn to get out of this situation and become better. That's a better outcome for me, I feel like, than if everything else is the problem and everything else just sucks because that's what it is. Well, I can't change anything to get out of that. But if I'm the problem and it's my attitude or my actions or whatever, then I can become better to get out of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. I mean,
awesome.
and it's a great mentality.
Donald Trump's gone through how many bankruptcies? And
I have no idea.
A lot.
Yeah.
I want to say it's 6 or 7 bankruptcies that he's gone through, yet he's a billionaire that was president of the United States. Like the mindset there wasn't, oh, I went bankrupt, I'm a failure. It was, oh, I went bankrupt. I guess I better move on to the next one.
Yeah. Do something different this time
do
or
something
whatever.
different. Yeah. And I would imagine he won't go bankrupt again, but maybe he will. I mean, he's getting old, but he'll probably redo all of it.
Yeah.
And that's just that's also a learned skill. And it's something that as we go on throughout life, I feel lucky because we got started in business pretty young. When you're young, you can take some risk and stuff that maybe you don't feel like you can take when you're a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting when you start to get into it where you can go with it and how quickly you can go with it. So my in-laws were saying the other day, they've built a really cool wedding venue and Airbnb resort. And they were like, it's kind of crazy because we didn't build what we were meant to build until we were in our mid 50s. So, we always think about things like maybe you have to start as you're young or this and that. They're in their 50s before they really built what they were meant to build. And who knows, maybe in 20 years, it's something completely different. They're going to go, we were meant to build this when we were in our 70s.
Yeah.
So that was running through my mind. And also, not to just jump subjects all over the place, but that's
what podcasts are for.
What podcasts are for. We have some friends that when COVID hit, their business was shut down for 6 weeks. And they were talking about how amazing it was to them at how little they could live on. And I thought that was really cool. They're like, we got creative with meals. We got creative with activities with our family. They got creative on everything. And I thought that was really cool because as far as like a recession proof, knowing that you can live on far less.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said. I'm just repeating the Matt wisdom.
Yeah.
It's
right.
Stopping being such a consumer, not being a consumer, but excess consumption.
Sure.
We can temporarily do that, and that's okay. Like we learn so much from that, and maybe it's a good assignment to just go out and say, hey, I'm going to pretend for a month that income has stopped. What can I do? Now, don't let that become your mentality of that income has stopped, but just pretend for a month and see how much money you can save. I actually think I kind of want to do that. Just see what can I do in a month and how much money could I actually put away?
Or how much also, and what are some streams that I can start up to make some income?
Yeah.
Like you got a camper in the driveway, can rent that puppy out.
Absolutely.
Like there's some other things too that it's like, oh, I didn't have to think about this before.
Yep.
How can I increase income in a month? Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like those a lot.
And letting ideas evolve. You and I are in a little business right now that started out as one thing and has kind of quickly moved into two things and maybe three things, but we're water.
Yeah.
It's flowing down a river.
Yeah.
We're letting it flow though. We're not resisting it and going, oh no, the water has to get dammed up. Well, eventually it's going to spill over. No, it's like, hey, the market's moving us in this direction. That's okay. You let things flow. And
we've never had experience in that before. So who are we to say this is the right way to do it?
Yeah.
We kind of got to feel it out and educate ourselves a little bit on it and just keep rolling forward.
Yeah. What if Jeff Bezos would have said, we're only ever going to sell books on Amazon.com? Okay.
It probably would have gone out of business.
Probably.
Well, I don't know. Their books and Audible and stuff pretty awesome.
Yeah,
but maybe they wouldn't have even come up with that.
Yeah, they wouldn't have purchased. Maybe they wouldn't have purchased Audible if he would have said, "We'll only ever sell physical books."
True.
Well, then they purchased Audible. They purchased.
Yeah.
They sell. You can buy anything on Amazon. And actually, if you're a retailer online and you're not selling through Amazon, you might not be doing well.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Pretty crazy.
Did you know there's an Amazon warehouse coming here?
No.
Well, to Idaho Falls.
Really?
Yeah. So I'd heard speculation on it for the last few months, but then I'd heard again the other day that I'm pretty sure that it's legit. Like
they'll have a lot of stuff.
It's like a distribution center.
So we might have like 1 day shipping.
Yeah, like we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess in some of these areas too, like obviously we live in the sticks in Idaho, so it's still getting delivered by UPS and FedEx and all that. Amazon has their own carriers in a lot of big cities and stuff. So maybe we'll have that too, or we'll actually get 1 day or 2 day or something like that.
I like living in the sticks.
I know.
But
I know.
But that's also along with all of this. There are so many people in this area that resist that change.
Mm-hmm.
They go, no, I don't want it, so I'm going to resist it. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen regardless of whether we want it or not. So just embrace it or move. I'm going to sound like that guy. Just embrace it or move because it's going to happen. So if you want to recession proof yourself, start a business. There's a lot of people moving to this area. There's a lot of need,
there's a lot of change and everything else. I was talking, I was out doing some work the other day, and a neighbor came up and was talking to me, and he's like, oh, we were really worried when you were developing, and what was going to go on back here and what's going to get put up. And, I mean, obviously it's in his backyard, so he's concerned about it. And I totally understand that. But on the other side, I'm like, it's only been on the market for 5 years.
Yeah.
If you were really that concerned about it, you could have bought it and put what you wanted back here.
Yep.
And so I think there is a lot of those people that just sit back and complain about it, or there's people that have a vision for what they want to be in their backyard and they go and build it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And maybe that's arrogant. I'm not saying that in an arrogant way, but you can sit around and complain about change, or you can jump in and be part of it. Yeah. And it's a lot funner to be part of it.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Well, and that guy, I don't know him, don't know who he is, nothing against him.
I don't really either. So
he's probably not out there consuming self-development books and books on wealth and legacy development. He's probably not reading that stuff.
Or or he just doesn't have any interest in, I mean, a lot of people are like, whatever. They get stuck in their day to day, and the last thing they want is another project or whatever, sure. But if you don't have enough ambition to take on another project or whatever, then don't be upset on what gets put there or what another person grows or builds or the content somebody else puts online. If you don't like somebody's content online, you think that this other kind of content ought to be online, build it, put it out there.
Yep.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't understand where we have this mentality that we can complain and get people to delete their content, or complain and somebody doesn't use their piece of property the way that they want to, or what. It's just so bizarre. It really is.
And there are just butthole people out there, and it just is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be those people no matter what. And then it kind of depends on our attitude,
Yeah.
I've been stuck several times on people that have made complaints about certain things. And I get stuck on those people. Like, why are they such complainers? Why are they doing that? And then at some point I just had to step back and go, those people are just going to exist.
Yeah.
And I need to accept that, and I need to become better. Now I feel sorry for some of those people.
Right.
Ooh, how miserable would that be to live that life where you're just constantly complaining about everything instead of just trying to make the world a better place. Like, the world could get better. I think we could all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
We could be part of that change.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you look at people like, we keep bringing him up, Joe Rogan. He never thought, I'm going to change the world for the better, but he has. He's given a platform of free speech. He's helped so many people. If you go on the Joe Rogan podcast, you're probably okay financially for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And he said it. He's like, well, you're not doing good right now. Well, you're on my podcast, so now you're going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Baker, carnivore diet guy, he goes on.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously these guys work hard, but he goes on Joe Rogan, and then all of a sudden, he jumps a lot of Instagram followers.
Yep.
And so someone like that, Joe Rogan, crappy childhood, is moving in a certain direction, then all of a sudden he's changing the world for the better. I don't know if Mike Tyson has, but but very wise. No, it's cool.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, we all have the chance to do that, even if it's not on the scale of Joe Rogan.
Yep.
But we have the chance to make things better.
Yeah.
And, that comes through creativity, which in business is expressed as entrepreneurship, and that's it. And we can better ourselves financially, and while we're doing it mentally and spiritually and everything else. I think that's the probably the main takeaway from from today is just being better, continually improving ourselves. And as we do that, you know, we become more resourceful and everything else, so that anything in life we can come out of.
Yeah.
So,
And how you do, and I think that's a perfect way to end it. And how you do anything is how you do everything. So everything you just said, I just learned a lot from you today in this podcast. So everything you just said, wrap that all up and know that how you do anything is how you do everything. So
yeah,
by doing all of that, we just get better at everything else.
yeah. I mean, start small, start putting some stuff aside, grow a little bit of side money, whatever, whether that's money that you're going to use in case of an emergency or FU money or whatever,
Little nest egg.
you know, and then be looking for opportunities, be looking for things that you can go out and make changes in and grow and build and diversify in.
Yeah, diversification.
You know, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know. We didn't really get into real specific things, but I think that if you did that overall in everything, like whether it's a recession, whether it's a emergency, whether it's no matter what it is, I think that's it.
It's so individualized that I don't think that I think we'd be doing people a disservice if we said exactly what we think that we should do.
Yeah.
Because it's all so individualized. But everything that you said about, you know, building that food storage and little nest egg, and then looking for opportunities and not over consuming, like all of that, that's going to be good for everybody. It's like, that's a good general knowledge that people can take away from it. And then, you know, in your individual life, that's where the opportunities come. I'm probably never going to get into mechanics with vehicles, but someone else might, and that's their opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And those opportunities are everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. Yeah.
Sweet.
I like it.
Well, thank you for today.
Yeah. Thank you. It was really good.
You had a lot of just really good little sound bites. Actually, we need to get some sound bites out of there. You just had some good one-liners.
Well,
so I appreciate
you too. Yeah. It's always good when we get together.
It is good.
It is. Like every week I look forward to it, and then I always come away with something too.
Yeah, it's good.
You know, not just something, quite a few things.
Yeah.
So it's really good, and some stuff to take back and use and implement and that kind of stuff. So nice.
Right. I appreciate it, man. We'll see you
Okay.
soon.
We'll see you.